So it's the What Happened to Music podcast. We're talking with Vince.
Hi, how you guys doing?
All right.
Vince is another person we know from Rowan, and he's currently hitting up that sweet substitute teaching market. So he's going to talk to us about his experiences with that.
Yeah, so we should probably explain that once you graduate from school.
Right. So once you graduate from school, it's not like all fairies and rainbows in this perfect path of where exactly you're going to go. Like, you're going to make a job, awesome, then your life starts.
You're saying I don't get the dream job right off
No, you don't. And I mean,
You're
I was
saying
one
I
of those
do not
people,
get a job right off the bat.
Well, yeah, fair enough as well. I was one of those people that, like, a lot of people think that, like, hey, I'm going to get a job right in here, then I'll be able to, like, settle with my life and get on making my life, and then find a wife and all, get some land and all that. But
maybe 2 goats
yeah,
and sheep.
yeah, two goats and sheep, build a farm, getting my economy rising. But I mean, sometimes it really doesn't work out like that. So luckily, I have had the honor and opportunities to get some long-term subbing positions under my belt.
And
so
those
at
are
least it's that.
and those are super important because I don't know about you, but I imagine the first time you ever interviewed for a job, it was during my student teaching.
Well,
as opposed to now you could say in my classroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's huge.
It's also huge. Even like when I'm subbing in so many different places, whether it be daily substitutes or like a long-term sub for a couple months, you get that all in, especially in this area of South Jersey, you get a lot of different connections that can really help whenever I'm in another interview and they somehow know someone. I actually had someone when I went for my last interview a week ago. They knew my advisor when I student taught. So, you know, like it's the more you just work and where you work, you just get more connections. And that's really something that will help you out in the long run too.
So what would you say initial challenges for somebody who has just graduated and you find yourself substitute teaching is a way you have to go for a bit?
I mean, there are different factors when you're thinking of like the daily substituting, like if you're in your district, compared to if you actually get a long-term sub in your certain subject matter. Because when I'm doing just a one-day substitution, that was kind of, I really felt like a substitute in the sense that if I subbed for a math class, it was really either just handing out the math. If it was like younger kids, then I'm like, oh yeah, I can definitely do 2 plus 2. But when you get to like high school, like honors, geometry or something, and it's been such, like that long ago, it's kind of like, well, I gotta kind of just pass out a paper. And that to me was like, oh man, like I felt kind of not inferior, but almost kind of like diminished in some respects.
Because at that point, I mean, not to be as a pejorative, but you're kind of a high-priced babysitter, or a low-priced babysitter with the way subs get paid.
I would say low-priced, but I mean,
but at that point, it's
you
need someone who's certified and legally able to be there. But you're not actually teaching. You're saying here are some things.
Yeah, no pun intended with like the pay thing, but I mean at the same time you're getting your money's worth, or you get your high worth when you're doing a long-term sub in your certain subject.
Do you do the source for teachers?
You know what? I just did it recently because when I interviewed for the place I just interviewed for a week ago and I was getting a demo, they said just in case go source for teachers. But I've mainly done ASOP, but I'm in the doing source for teachers now. I'm in the whole process.
It seems like source for teachers is like the Walmart of.
I actually had a long-term sub where part of the reason I got the job so quickly was I was already registered with source for teachers, and they were a source for teachers school.
Well, I mean, that's good if you're going from that process of substitute into teacher in that district. Like absolutely,
yeah.
Like, and think that's what they were trying to go for too with me.
So you're saying even if you're not looking to do actually through source for teachers, you should just get your source for teachers or whatever, or I guess whatever the regional.
I would, and it really depends. Like, do your information and do all your research when you're doing that, because when I did source for teachers, I found a lot of places that really weren't near me. So at first, when I first got out of college and did subbing, I just did main districts around me and just hit ASOP, which is another substituting for people that don't know. But I kind of almost found it redundant to do source for teachers only because of just where my location was and the certain school districts that they applied to.
So what's been your best sub job as of now?
So I've had several so far in different locations in South Jersey and different grades as well. The most recent one was probably my favorite. just because of location and just the kids and the groups I worked with, and the age group, which was really one of my favorites. That was general and choral, actually, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And that was from October to February, and it was really cool. The only one challenging part was I came in probably the week before Halloween. So, being music teachers, you definitely know that going into that late and starting a concert, that was like probably in like the first or second week of December. It was like
It was go time.
It had to be go time the moment I got in there. So they was just like making lots of copies, making lots of different changes, and just really pushing just to get to that date point. That was probably the most challenging thing.
I would think as a sub, one of the advantages you do have is it gives you a lot more practice at your first day procedures.
You know what? It depends. I think when I'm a long-term sub, I think it's still my obligation to take what I have and make it, like, show the kids, like, hey, this is how I am, awesome. But at the same time, like, it makes no sense to change the norms and all of the different kinds of...
The expectations.
the expectations and all the daily things that they're used to, just for a couple months until their teacher comes back. So, like, my obligation as a long-term sub is to make sure that I'm still kind of doing the norms and all the standards that they're used to. Like, anything that they do is daily warm-ups. Like, I felt like they should still be doing that because, I mean, it's norms in the classroom that they should definitely have. So, for me, just to change it to what I want to do, it doesn't seem very right. So, like, I take and pick of what I want to give, and then I take.
Makes sense. So how often do the kids make fun of you?
A lot. I actually had kids like make fun of my hair or just like the way I talk or something. But like I laugh about it.
Well, but your hair looks very nice.
I know, right? I put a lot of time into it. But like
you look like Captain America, Vince.
Do I?
I don't know.
He
That's the
means
biggest
Steve
compliment.
Rogers.
DJ, does this guy look like
Steve
Captain
Rogers
America?
or Steve Rogers or Chris Evans? Because there is a difference, and I will be very upset with which one you choose.
I don't know which one.
Okay. Okay.
I think I've seen both the movies and haven't really paid
but
attention.
it's funny because, I mean, 6th grade, when you get there teaching it, it's almost like that forbidden grade that, like, okay, so they're in, and this is also elementary school, because elementary school was 4th, 5th, and 6th. Mm-hmm. So having 6th graders in elementary school, it is kind of different when you see them in the middle school, because they're like, usually in middle school, they're usually the lower tier, like the kids that come in, but they're still the higher tier of these 4th and 5th graders. So
big fish.
Oh yeah, big fish in a very small pond. So it's challenging. Those are ones usually that like kind of test the waters a lot more.
It was interesting with my charter school. When I was my first job, which was the charter school, it was the school was originally K-1-2, and then next year it was, they added a grade. It was the 3rd grade, added a grade. It was the 4th grade, and added a grade. It was the 5th grade. Mm-hmm. And all I can remember thinking was, these kids have had 4 years of being the big fish.
Yeah,
and those kids were significantly jerkier, if you will. I really was like, they've been the big fish for every single year they've been in that school.
Well, the same place where it was...
They've never been...
No, same thing happened to me last year in another placement for around 3 months. And they go to the same school from kindergarten to 5th. And it's the same kids. And it's funny, compared to my last placement with the 6th graders, the 5th graders of my last year placement were like much... I don't want to say jerkier because they weren't, but like just more headstrong. That like they thought that like, oh, I've been here for like 5 years, I can do whatever I want. This is my hometown, like finger snapping and like sharks and jets everywhere. So
notice how Vince can snap with both his hands.
Right. Banana, 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 banana.
Notice I'm only snapping with one.
Okay. And scene. Yeah, but I mean, it definitely, there's a lot of different stuff like socioeconomic stuff, environment. Location, like that all makes a factor of how kids act.
So if I'm trying to think, what advice would you give to somebody who's just graduating music school and this may need to be an option because, I mean, especially certain markets are harder than others.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The biggest thing of advice I would give is really just try to keep yourself as versatile and open as possible. If you're going to go into a position thinking that I believe this is the proper way of teaching and this is what I will give my students, then I'm not going to guarantee, but I will think very highly that the person that you're subbing for, if it is a long-term sub we're talking about, they're probably not going to think very highly of you, because you need to, because if it's a different belief or different thinking, it's not going to go well. Because remember, you're trying to take over smoothly as possible until they come back. And if you're like, I had my teacher I subbed for recently, she said that it felt like she didn't even leave. And that's what your main goal is. Your main vision is to literally go in like a ninja. Go in, do your job, and then get out. It's like with as little blood on your hands as possible. So be versatile, because I mean, music education's not like is a place where everyone gets a job. So I mean, I was instrumental and I was also vocal. So having this, I mean, that's what really gives me the edge, or at least an edge in that respect. So keep yourself open to different teachings. Just keep making yourself better. That's the best thing.
All right. So if you have any questions for Vince or about anything with substitute teaching, experiences, let us know in the comment section below.